In this video, we're going to be taking a look at using properties of addition with fractions, and the essential question is, how can properties help you add fractions with unlike denominators? Now, it will be important for you to turn to page 281 in your Go Math book, get out your math journal and a pencil. So at the very top of page 281, it says you can use properties of addition to help you add fractions with unlike denominators. And we have some examples here. Okay, it says commutative property. Now remember, the commutative property of addition is you can add fractions in whatever order and it'll all still come out the same, or add digits together in whatever order and they'll still come out the same answer. And I always think of a community in that no matter how you order people in a community, it's still a community. Okay, now associative property, basically what you're doing here is you are taking parentheses, as you can see here, and grouping fractions so they are added before the other fraction. Okay, so for example, if we have 2/9 plus 1/8 plus 3/8, you would want to add 1/8 and 3/8 together. Why would you want to do that? Because they both have the same denominator. So you can see what happened here is the 1/8 and 3/8 parentheses around both of them. Therefore, you need to do the parentheses first. Okay, so let's take a look at the problem on page 281. It says Jane and her family are driving to Big Lagoon State Park. On the first day, they travel 1/3 of the total distance. On the second day, they travel 1/3 of the total distance in the morning, and then 1/6 of the total distance in the afternoon. How much of the total distance has Jane's family driven by the end of the second day? And now what we're going to do, we're going to be using the associative property. Now, it is important to know that with the associative property, what you do is you can group fractions with like denominators together. So we have, first of all, 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/6. You can see within this story problem, 1/3 and 1/6 are actually grouped to be the same. However, what we're going to be doing with the associative property, I want you to write this in. We're going to add 1/3 and group 1/3 plus 1/3 together because it has a common denominator. Okay, so pretty easy to add 1/3 and 1/3 together. Okay, we can even use mental math to add the fractions with like denominators. 1 and 1 will give us 2. Denominator stays the same for 2/3. Now we have 2/3 plus 1/6. And what we will need to do is we will need to have equivalent fractions with like denominators. Okay, so we know that 3 goes into 6 2 times. Alright, so we need to multiply our 3 by 2 to get to 6, and therefore we need to multiply the numerator by 2, giving us 4/6. And then we can just bring our 1/6 down, and then we can add 4/6 plus 1/6 pretty easily now, giving us 5/6. So then from there, Jane's family has driven 5/6 of the total distance by the end of the second day. So you can see adding 1/3 and 1/6 together really complicates things, especially when we have two fractions here with like denominators. We just group both of them together, add them together, and then we only need to change the denominator one time, giving us a final answer of 5/6. Okay, now we have the problem of 2 5/8 plus 1 2/3 plus 1 1/8. This is on page 282. And what we're going to do with this, we're going to actually use the commutative property, where we can order the add-ins however in whatever order, and we'll still have the same answer. And also the associative property, which we talked about, where we're able to group fractions with like denominators together. Okay, so we have 2 5/8 plus 1 2/3 plus 1 1/8. Okay, so first of all, we're going to use a commutative property to put fractions with like denominators next to each other. Pretty obvious there, you want to add fractions with like denominators. So we're going to put that 1 2/3 plus 2 5/8 plus 1 1/8. We're going to order those a certain way, and then from there we're going to use the associative property to group fractions with like denominators together. Okay, so we will do 2 5/8, 1 1/8, and then 1 2/3. Okay, now from here, what we can do, we can use mental math to add the fractions with like denominators. Okay, we have 5/8 plus 1/8 there is going to give us 6/8. Okay, and then we add the whole numbers together, giving us 3 6/8. So let's write that down. Then we bring our 1 2/3 down. And now what we need to do, we need to find a common denominator. Now, I can take a look at this, and I know that if I multiply by opposite denominators, in other words, if I multiply that 2/3 times 8, and I multiply that 6/8 times 3, that's going to give me 24 for my common denominator. So I'm going to take 1 2/3 and multiply that 2/3 by 8. That's going to give me 1 16/24. And then I can multiply that 6/8 times 3 because that's the opposite denominator, giving me 3 18/24. It is very important to know that whenever you find a common denominator, you do not do anything to that whole number. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to add 1 16/24 plus 3 18/24. That's going to give us 4 34/24, which is an improper fraction, that 34/24, that has to be simplified. Okay, and what we can do there, we can divide the numerator by the denominator. Okay, and what that will do, that will give us 1 with a remainder of 10. Okay, so we can regroup that 1 with a remainder of 10 and simplify, giving us 5 5/12 for the final answer. So you can see how we use the commutative property. First of all, we reordered the order of the problem. Okay, then from there we use the associative property. What we did is we just grouped the two fractions with like denominators together. Okay, for this next problem we have 2 5/8 plus 5/6 plus 1 1/8. So now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use the commutative property. So I'm going to take 5/6 plus 2 5/8 plus 1 1/8. Okay, so that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to use the commutative property in that I can order these fractions in any order. Okay, and then from here what I'm going to do is use the associative property. So I'm going to take that 5/6, put that on the outskirts for now, and then I'm going to have 2 5/8 together with 1 1/8. Why would I do that? Because they both have a common denominator. Makes it pretty easy. Okay, so the first thing we'll do now is add 5/8 and 1/8. That's going to give me 6/8, which can be simplified to 3/4. And then I will add my whole numbers together, giving me 3 3/4. Now what I will do, I'm going to add 5/6 to that 3/4. Okay, so what I will need to do is find a common denominator, and I know 4 and 6 both go into 12. So 12 is going to be my common denominator. What did I do to 4 to make it a 12? I multiplied by 3. So therefore I have to multiply my numerator by 3. Same for 6. I multiplied that by 2. Therefore I have to multiply my denominator by 2 as well. Now I have 9/12 plus 10/12. That's going to give me 19/12. Now from here, we need to take that 19/12 and change that into a mixed number. So I'm going to divide my numerator by my denominator. 12 and the 19 goes one time, and that's going to give me 1 with a remainder of 7. Okay, now that fraction actually equals 1, or to say that division problem equals 1 7/12. Now I'm going to take that 1 7/12, I'm going to add it to my whole number, I know I'm kind of going all around here, but hopefully you're able to follow me. 1 and 7/12 added to that whole number, you can see, is giving me 4 and 7/12 for my answer. Now I want you to do this next one at your seat all by yourself, and when you're finished you can press play and I will have the answer for you. So pause the video now. Now I had the answer of 1 and 7/12, so you can see what I did here is I used the associative property, and what I did is I just grouped these two fractions with like denominators, and then we can see 5/12 and 5/12 is 10/12, adding that to 3/4. You can see I did need to find a common denominator. Adding 10/12 and 9/12 gives me 19/12 for a grand total of 1 and 7/12. Okay, I want you to do this problem all by yourself. When you're finished, you can press play, and I'll have the answer for you. So pause the video now. Okay, you can see my answer is 1 and 2/7. Now I used the associative property. 1/3 and 2/3 gave me 3/3. I did not have to, try to find a common denominator. I just changed that 3/3 into 1, and then I added my 2/7, giving me a 1 and 2/7 for the answer. Now I want you to take a look at this next problem. Work this problem out all by yourself. When you're finished, you can press play, and I will have the answer for you. So pause the video now. Okay, my answer is 1 and 1/10, so you can the steps that I took in order to get that answer. Okay, finishing up the video with the test prep problem, I want you to work through this problem all by yourself. When you're finished, you can press play and I will have the answer for you. So pause the video now. Okay, the answer is B, associative property, and you can see that what happened was that there was not any order that needed to be changed, so the commutative property did not come into play. You can see that 1/9 and 4/9 were just grouped together because they had a common denominator. Now wrapping up the video, how can properties help you add fractions with unlike denominators? You can see the answer to that essential question. And this concludes the video on using properties of addition when adding fractions with unlike denominators. If you have any questions about this concept, please come and see me.